Okay, so we're probably going to do round about 40 minutes. We're going to have a look at some stuff around motivation. Just to get us kicked off, I kind of, before we started, I thought where we might begin. So I wrote a couple of things down, and this might be a good starting point. So what do you know about it? So what do you know about motivation? Yeah. And then for me to get some idea about what motivates you, and then we'll try and fit it in with this. Yeah. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Yeah. Discussion on your table. Come back to me. You can make it as simple or as detailed as you need. Some of you might have some real good knowledge about motivation. Yeah. And then just have a little think about that. Okay. So 2 minutes, and that'll just get us going, and then we'll get into the workshop, and I've got a bit of a practical activity that we'll have a go and we'll have a look at as well. All right. So 2 minutes. Where you go.
What is the motivation? Yeah, there's two different types of motivation. The internal motivation and external
I think so. It's like, people doing
Yeah, it's not designed to give you a brain ache, this. Well, you, and then we can relate it to players. So what do you know about motivation? Yeah, what is it? And then what sort of things motivate you, and that might then link in with what you know about motivation. Yeah, yeah. So knowledge of, and then what motivates you. Yeah.
That's what motivates me to external. I suppose so you could put it like peaks of motivation is you already know motivation. That's what kind of got to get back to motivation. You've got to give some these external motivation.
What?
What motivates you? Talk about that.
Yeah, what motivates you? I think I've got an idea about what motivates me in general. Like day to day. And then I know what motivates me in terms of maybe football coaching, if you ask me specific stuff around.
Well, that's it. It's like your life in general, isn't it? You want to be the best at everything you do.
That's why I've kept it that broad.
To be coaches, therefore we want to be coaches. So you want to be the best coach you can be.
I've kept it quite broad, rather than saying. And that second bit, depending on what sort of stuff comes back, will link in with some of the detail that you might get from some of the presentation slides, because we're going to look at some stuff around what maybe motivates kids to play football, or if you look at it from our perspective, what motivates you to A, be a coach, or continue to be a coach. Yep. Okay. Enough time? Yeah. So what sort of stuff do you kind of know? Anybody want to share some stuff about motivation?
Like 2 types. There's like the intrinsic, extrinsic.
Okay. Yeah. So the 2 types of motivation. Yeah. Intrinsic, extrinsic. Anybody else come across that? Yeah. Any examples of? Because that might link in with this. So intrinsic.
Like, I know extrinsic, that's like winning stuff, so it'll be like trophies and what could be like man of the match and stuff like that. Whereas if intrinsic is wanting to do it,
yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah, good. So intrinsic means internal, self. You might get a sense of enjoyment, satisfaction from whatever you're doing. Yeah. Whereas the extrinsic, as Mike's just explained there, that might be something that you receive externally. Yeah. So it could be reward, whatever that may be. It may well be praise. Yeah, it may be constant, praise that kind of motivates that individual because it's coming from external. Yeah. So 2. So what sort of things did you kind of suggest motivated you? And I kept it quite broad. I was saying to this group here, kept it broad because it could be just about day-to-day, life in general, or you might have gone, oh, well, I'm going to look at it in a little bit more detail around football and coaching. Lucas?
What motivates me is my fail, if you know what I mean. If I'm doing something wrong, that motivates me for future to going better.
Right, so sense of fail. You don't want to fail. You want to do well.
On a set up so high target, high target.
Okay.
Through that target.
So good example of intrinsic motivation, but maybe that, if you will, that fear of failure.
Self-doubt.
Yeah, might be things like self-doubt where you're questioning, oh crikey, am I really going to achieve what target or what goal I've set myself?
And
yeah.
With my team is smile with other kids. Is have fun, that motivates me to play.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you can see that they're generating something positive from the experience, yeah, so that's probably a sense of satisfaction. Yeah. Any others?
Players taking on the constructive criticism and you seeing it take effect and them acknowledging it themselves that it can improve their own game.
Okay, so if you can see that there's a benefit.
It's actually your coaching is it's having an effect on their own game and
yeah.
It motivates them.
Yeah. Intrinsic? Yeah. Any others?
Maybe something you've worked on in training, actually seen it in a game.
Okay. Yeah, so you can kind of see the fruits of your efforts or what you've been doing, and then it's put into practice in the game. Yeah. And do you sometimes get feedback from others?
When you say others?
Yeah. So the kids say, oh, do you know what? That's worked. Yeah, we've been working on that and it's just happened in the game.
And the parents as well.
Yeah. It's quite nice, isn't it? You know, when you get a compliment from the parents and they can say, oh, the kids are playing really well. You must be doing some good stuff in training. That can serve as like that external motivation because you're getting some praise, a little bit of credit. Yeah.
Players' enjoyment of training and also seeing them engaged. Yeah. So So,
Yeah.
you know, that like it's something that they enjoy, and they're not, you know, wandering their minds off or whatever, they're focused
Yeah.
on what you're doing.
Do you think the intrinsic stuff is hard to quantify?
In a sense.
Yeah, you cannot measure it. It's quite difficult. The other stuff, the external stuff, then that might be a little bit different or a bit easier to measure. Yeah.
It's to do with perception, though, isn't it? Because it's something visual.
Yeah.
Trophy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you might have some kids in your group that are motivated by what they get externally. Yeah. They might be motivated, you know, by where they figure. But it might not be high on their list of priorities. Yeah.
Motivation is like a cycle, intrinsic and extrinsic. They're always reinforcing each other. So you have a player who wants to do really well, best of the team, score a goal, which is an external factor.
Yeah.
And then because they've scored the goal, intrinsic and it's self-belief.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So the two can be really, really intertwined. Yeah. Because the player that needs a bit of praise, yeah, who makes a good pass, scores a goal, makes a good save, if that happens and then they get that little bit of recognition, yeah, maybe from peers, maybe from coach, possibly from parents, it can also act as a bit of a source of motivation in itself, keep things ticking over. Yeah.
Actually, it creates a bit of a monster, if you like, with one player, where I was asking him to, basically it was closing down the fullbacks on goal kicks, so
Yeah.
probably stopped playing him short, and I wasn't telling him to do it, but in the game I just said, what do you need to do, you know, to reinforce it off the goal kicks. Anyway, he took that as criticism. So next thing he's off the pitch saying that I'm not playing any good, he just literally walked off the pitch, so no, you're doing well,
Yeah.
Anyway, another time then it led to actually us scoring from him shutting it down and getting it in. I said, look what's happened? And he understood that. But then the next game comes along, he's doing exactly the same thing still, spot on, but he comes off the pitch again. I'm not playing well, and he just literally scored as well. But he just wanted to tell him that he was. That it just, I don't know. Everyone thinks this certain player is really tough mentally, but I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
He's like really sort of...
That links in with what you said there about self-doubt, and sometimes people, kids, are not as robust or as resilient as you might imagine, and it might be what drives them, and particularly in terms of motivation, if they're not that, if you will, that self-confident in terms of intrinsic motivation and what they're getting from whatever they're doing, if they're dependent on the external stuff, if they're not getting enough of it or they're not getting it at the right time, it can have that, if you will, that opposite effect. It's you know, I think I used an example. We've got a boy that plays in our team who's done really well, good at other sports, but we've got to manage the motivation because he's placed an enormous amount of his focus on external motivation. Yeah, what he gets from other people and if you will, recognition or rewards. So we've had to, if you will, refocus that his motivation needs to come internally.
And learn to become dependent on the external. So otherwise he's always going to be seeking it. He's not going to be what we were talking about last week with making their own decisions. He's going to have that trust in himself.
Yeah.
He's more intrinsically motivated.
It's getting a real good balance between both. Yeah. Okay. I'm just wanted to see what you knew about it and how that links in with some of the stuff that kind of would underpin it here. So couple of the outcomes from kind of the discussion and the work around the workshop. So why players are involved. Yeah, going to share some stuff with you around why young players play football. And then look at how our behaviour can promote things like commitment and motivation. So we've already touched on some stuff around that. Yeah, well, you know, we might, if we want to motivate our players, we might use praise. Yeah, so that might be, you know, that might be a really effective way of providing some external motivation at the right time. Any others? What other ways do you kind of motivate your players?
Something that's enjoyable.
Okay, so and that might be around practice design. Yeah, so make the practice, make the session enjoyable. Motivation got a better chance of being increased.
Children like being competitive, any competition, that's it.
Okay, so provide competition. Yep, competition will feed motivation. Yep. Any others?
Yeah, like make it like a game, you know, like you said. But also, I hand out with them, still being very young, like I hand out man of the match medals and best choice medals, so I mean, little rewards like that.
Yeah. So that's external.
And that goes, that affects the behaviour as well, like, I mean, knowing that they've got a chance of getting it, and knowing that if you misbehave, they're not going to get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Same time when training is girls doing something well, or maybe one girl doing very well, throw it back and sweep that girl, but she still needs to share with everyone else.
Yeah.
That's more motivational, like social, everything.
Yeah, yeah. So both external. Yeah. So if you do things like player of the match, you know, and whatever it's kind of for. So if the emphasis is placed on effort, yeah, and attitude and improvement and development, that might be a really sound way of motivating. We still have this bit of lump of plastic cum metal that kind of gets handed out at the end of every game. The kids pick. So the kids pick the player of the match, and I think we've just helped them consider who gets it, and I think that's shifted definitely over the period of time I've been working with the players. So they've not put emphasis on it being the player that scores the most goals, yeah. But it's maybe who's made some good passes, who's put some good tackles in, who's put effort in, who's been demonstrating, you know, good teamwork, yeah, bit of togetherness. It's quite interesting. So we've given the players ownership, and there have been occasions where they've not singled out a player. They've kind of gone, oh, we can't split it. There's a couple of players here. One for the things I've just talked about in terms of effort, attitude, yeah, commitment. And then maybe somebody who's done something really special in the game, yeah, so performance based. So it might have been, you know, they have scored, you know, an out of this world goal, and that's really fixed in the mind of the kids. But it's still there. It's kept going. I inherited it, and I asked the kids whether they wanted to continue with it, and they went, yeah, we'll have a go with it.
You like setting targets and goals and stuff like that?
Yes, we do a little bit of goal setting. It's not sophisticated, it's quite simple. Yeah. I think that's more collective. So we'll say, look, we want you to try and keep a clean sheet in the second half. Yeah. But we've used that when we've been trailing, and we've also used it when we've been leading. And it's kind of had slightly different emphasis. We probably got more value out of the one where we kept a clean sheet and we were trailing, because that gave us real incentive. I think the kids were more motivated. However, the one where you're ahead, there was that kind of linking it. It's that fear. It's that fear of, as opposed, you know, keeping away from something as opposed to, you know, striving to get somewhere. So I'm pretty confident that you all use lots of different ways to motivate your players. This is kind of some of the research that was done as part of the Youth Development Review, and what it highlights is this was responses from children about why they play football, what motivates them, and when you kind of look at the top at what gets the biggest scores, it's quite different to what is down at the bottom, which doesn't get any scores. So if I pick out a couple of examples, so second one down there, I love playing football because it's fun. Yeah, intrinsic motivation. Down at the bottom, right at the bottom, it's important to me, I win trophies and medals. Winning's more important to me than trying my hardest. So it's quite telling in terms of what feedback the kids came in terms of why they play football, what motivates them to continue playing. Yeah. Do you think that might change over time, and if so, when? So as they get older?
Yeah.
And when do you think it...
We've got 14, 15. Maybe
So-
a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, when it goes to under 12s, it becomes competitive, doesn't it?
Okay.
You know, there is a league table and whatnot
Yeah.
to actually see.
Would the kids know? Would the kids know that there's a league table if we didn't tell them?
Some would, some wouldn't.
Yeah.
Some are on the ball with that sort of thing.
Then the others would
Yeah.
soon find out, wouldn't we? If one found out.
Yeah.
Different people are differently motivated.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, and it does come down to knowing the kids. So in our group of players, some of them have no idea exactly where they are. So we're in a league. We've been ahead of the Youth Development Review, so we're kind of in a league table, points awarded. Some of the boys have not got a clear idea of where they are. One or two others have. I'm not so sure that many of them would know where to go and look to find that out. Yeah?
It depends on age and ability.
Yeah.
Higher the ability, I think, the more backable at a younger age. Like you say, like your academy there, the younger them when they want to win things, because they want to prove they're best. Whereas if you play just like normal grassroots football, they're there with the mates, whereas an academy 9 times out of 10 you're out there with your mates that you met at school or you just play football with them on a local park. You're there because you want to get better and better.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to prove you're the best by beating everyone else.
Yeah. We've got a couple of the boys that will ask, where are we? So, because I'm asked, I'll say, well, this is where we are. Yeah, we're ahead of where we've kind of, in terms of our season goal, aimed for. Lucas?
Is it possible this thing is changed if you have a children who actually play football, and children who no play football, only play from foot in a school or outside? That'd be probably different too.
Could be. My experience with, and I can only base my experience on what I've kind of have seen over the last, probably the last 12, 18 months. So they're under 12s, under 13s. They're definitely motivated by the competition, but they're not necessarily motivated by finishing top and winning a trophy and a medal. I think they see it there as being something to aim for, but it doesn't undermine the motivation to keep playing, wanting to get better, enjoying playing football, being with the mates. I think that far outweighs, but it's kind of there as something for them to aim for. We've tried to keep things sensible and achievable, so we've related last season's experience to this season's, and we've just said if we can finish in the same or one position better, that's progress. So it's achievable. and I think that it comes back to what you kind of said about, you know, like targets and goals. So we've set some. They're not exactly down in stone, but we've talked to the kids and said, what do you want to try and do this season? And I think it is an age thing. Yeah. As they get a little bit older, they get a bit more, if you will, in tune with what's going on. They become more competitive, and I think then you can in the right way place some more demands on them, because they will themselves. Yeah. But I mean, that's quite telling in terms of just some feedback about, you know, kids playing football. Which can they control the most, do you think?
Effort.
Yeah. So that's the significant one. They can control that. Variable? Yeah. Depends on
the player.
Yeah. Depends on the individual. That's what it is. It's luck, good fortune. Yeah. Can't control that.
That's parents.
Yeah. They're not kind of in there, are they? Yeah.
You can try and influence opposition, like effort.
Yeah.
So the opposition see you giving your team giving everything. I think you're quite really up for this.
Yeah. It's what we talked about last week in terms of what can you influence and what can you control. Yeah. It's just, I think that's something just for you to have a look at and to consider. So what sort of things do motivate or demotivate them, and how do you know that? Yeah. That's something you can apply to yourself as well as the players. What keeps you going? Yeah, when you feel demotivated. So is it that fear of failure? Is it that, oh crikey, a bit of self-doubt? I've got to keep putting the effort in here. Yeah, I've got to keep trying. I've got to keep myself focused on what I'm doing, even when you may well feel slightly demotivated. That's quite an interesting one. So consider some of the reasons why it might be helpful to persist at something. Yeah. And what the benefits might be to keep having goals, trying to get better, trying to solve something, trying to achieve what you've set, set yourself as a target. And then that kind of the last bit, what we as coaches, what we might need to do to ensure that the players remain committed. Yeah. So they keep on task, and you maintain the motivation, and maybe it doesn't diminish. And it kind of comes back to what we said there. So how might that change in the different development phases? So if you're in the foundation phase, yeah, that's going to be quite different to when the kids move into the youth development phase and they go to high school, when certain things become more prevalent and more important. Yeah. So it's something for you to consider. What I'll do with some of the slides off here, the ones that are really relevant, I'll put them on the Hive group. So I know some of you are making notes and what have you. I'll put those on. So a good way in which to refer back to stuff. So again, just something for you to consider. So ways, strategies for instilling interest and motivation in your players. Yeah. So the one at the top. So that might be tasks or things that the players can regulate themselves. Yeah. So a good example might be keep your peace. Yeah. Individuals, they regulate, yeah, the target they're trying to achieve themselves. So that might maintain motivation. Yeah. I can do 15 keep your peace. Yeah. My role as the coach to keep them committed might be, can you get to 16? Can you get to 17? yeah? Try and practice away from the session. They come back, I can do 25, brilliant. Go on, show us, yeah? They show you, yeah? They manage to get 26, they get one better. So the players can regulate, if you will, what they're doing in the tasks, yeah? Bottom right hand corner, open inquiry approaches to coaching. So that's an approach that we kind of take, yeah? Not to be blinkered, yeah? But to consider all the opportunities. And then the last one is use of questions. So tapping into, if you will, find out what do the players know, yeah? What's going to keep them motivated to do the next bit or do something different. So just 3 different ways that in terms of your role as a coach, that might be part of your toolbox in terms of maintaining motivation. Okay?
I gave all those, when I first started, the little questionnaire for them.
Okay, yeah.
Session, we took them saying what football team do you support and like and why?
Yeah.
Who's your favourite player, female or male? Which position on the pitch do you like to play? What do you like best about being part of our team? And what do you think we could do to make training and playing more fun?
Yeah, so they're quite they're quite thoughtful questions, aren't they? Because what you're doing is you're tapping into the thinking of the kids.
Some of them support Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Oh, there you go, Carl.
They're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah. So I'll keep an eye on how they've done, and then when they come to training, because that's smaller numbers, so it is easier to do that.
Yeah.
And you can say how did they go on, but you already know, and then they tell you, and
yeah.
Say you think, and their favourite player is John Daddy Barbason. Mm-hmm. So I'll say, what did he do? What do you think you could do there?
Yeah. And that's knowing the player, but that's a really simple but effective way of seeing what makes the players tick. We've done something similar. We've kind of done it at the start of the season. What your likes, what do you want to improve on? It's quite interesting to see who does it and who doesn't, and who's been influenced by parents to do it and who's done it of their own accord, who gives it you back, who do you need to remind to ask for stuff. Because if they're not motivated about even doing something like that, they won't do it, they won't bring it back, and it won't be revealed to you the stuff that you really want to know about the players. So it's quite an interesting thing.
With regards to like parents coaching from the side, because that's always been an issue with my parents, and that I could probably put in a question like that. You know, what motivates you to play best? Like parents shouting,
yeah,
you know, instructions on the side, and you know, just rephrase it differently. Like, but I could probably get feedback from the players from that, and then I could adjust the parents with that kind of feedback.
What do you like? What don't you like? What happens on game day? You know, and
how did you best focus during the game?
Don't complicate it. Just think about some real simple questions. Yeah. But if you will, that's that. It's questions. It's open inquiring approach. Yeah. And I know, but I buy into it, and you can really begin to see what motivates the kids. Yeah. And you're kind of working in the psych and the social corner. Really, really, powerful.
And that's my motivation. I coached them all through the summer when the season stopped, and then this little girl came and gave me that.
Yeah. So that's almost like that. That's the external stuff, isn't it? It's recognition. It's a little bit of praise. You get something. You think, oh wow. You get a thank you. A thank you card. You might even, if you're really lucky, because you get to the end of the season, and the parents kind of recognise your efforts, and the kids will come and they kind of give you something, get a card, you might get whatever it is. I think one of the most memorable things I got and the other coaches got one of the parents, we'd had a picture taken of the kids, we got a team picture, and they got mugs made for us. So there's a picture of the team on, with that season, got the mug, yeah? Because it's kind of, it's a bit extrinsic, but it's more intrinsic because it's tapping into, if you will, what really makes me tick. But I've got something there, I'm going, oh, like that, that's great. You know, so we all need a little bit of extrinsic motivation, yeah, but also we need stuff that's intrinsic, yeah. We're going to go out, we're going to do some practical, yeah, and we're going to pick up on motivation. So I've got some practical games which will hopefully really highlight what things we can do when we're outside to help with motivation. Depending on time, we might begin the afternoon with an activity in here. I'll try and set it up to get us motivated for the afternoon session. Yeah, I think I'll try and devise something which will have a bit of competition. Yeah. So good stuff. It's just gone 11. So if we aim to get ourselves organised and be outside for, shall we say, 20 past? So you got a bit of chance to have a brew? I want a brew. I'm going to have a brew. I need to be motivated by a cup of tea. Yeah? So I'll have a little bit of a break and then we can get the gear, go and get set up, and I'm going to use some games. Yeah? I'm not using drills. I'm going to use some games. Yeah? Yeah? It's a swear word. I'm going to use some games to see how that motivates or demotivates. Yeah? So that's the plan. Just to draw your attention, in your journals, there's a couple of relevant pages for today, this morning, this afternoon. So if you just flick to page 34, you'll see that there's a couple of templates there. There's one that relates to self-esteem, yeah, one that relates to confidence, and one that relates to motivation. So it's just asking you to list some positive and negative factors around those three areas. So we've covered some stuff around motivation. Yeah, so it just says, think about the development of your players and list the things that can positively and negatively affect each of the factors shown below. Yeah, so positive and negative for motivation. It then finishes, it just says, why is it important to use the FA four-corner model when coaching players? Yeah, so we've started to delve in that, haven't we? You know, we're talking about things in the technical, physical, psych and social corners. Yeah.
Self-esteem and confidence pretty much, they're both the same thing, in a sense. I mean, linked but different. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they're connected. Yeah, and motivation's also connected in there as well. Yeah. So make some notes in here. You don't have to do it today. You can do it at some point going forwards. As I said before, what I'll do is I'll pick out what I think are the real pertinent slides, and I'll put those on the Hive group. All right. So we'll look to get going. It'll be about 20 past because I need to get my act together so we can get out there. Cool. Good stuff.